Hello and welcome to a new episode of AICA Podcast. I am Mihaela Ion and I'm more than honored to have a new season of AICA Podcast with amazing art critics, art managers, and people involved in cultural domains. And today I have this great opportunity to have an amazing talk with Lucia Beck that I met during the Congress in Bucharest, the International Congress of AICA in Bucharest, and where I learned more about her preferred topic, about her profession. And before I start with the first question, I would like to present Ana Lucia, as he sent me in her bio, as a Brazilian visual artist by education, a comparative researcher by destiny, a teacher and critic by heart, a traveler and a wanderer. Lucia, can you tell me more about how did you get to this presentation about yourself? Because from my point of view, it's a personal one, and also you say a lot of things about your professional and about your hobbies.
Hi, Mihaela. Hello, everyone. Firstly, let me say thank you for the invite. Um, let's see if I can contribute with the public with some insights. So, as for your question, my presentation mixes things that actually intertwine my personal life and my professional life. So I am someone who has been raised traveling a lot. So this helped me to develop this sense of eagerness to get to know new things. And this also gave me the opportunity as a Brazilian, while I was still a teenager, to visit many museums in Europe. So this is why traveling has a pivotal um, I'm sorry,
Status. No, it's okay. A pivotal status or a pivotal
so important. It
meaning.
was so important for my life. And then, more professionally speaking, I firstly studied visual arts. I got a degree in drawing, and I also studied art history and critique for my master's. But then later on, I ventured into literature. So I got my PhD in literature studies. So this is why I spoke about being a comparative researcher by destiny. But I have also been acting for the last 25 plus years as an art teacher. And I believe that what you are supposed to do and what you are supposed to facilitate as a teacher has a lot to do with criticism. So this is why I also say that I am a critic by heart, because trying to be critical about things in general and art especially is something that is very familiar and natural for me. And well, this all means that I am perpetually wondering and wondering about the world. And I try to somehow bring this together when I view art, when I speak about art, when I show or write about art.
Yeah. Thank you very much for telling me this and telling us all the information. You said that you are an artist first of all, and then you studied art criticism. How is it for you as an artist to have a second profession, if I can say that, as an art critic? How was to, I don't know, not lose, to change all the information that you had as an artist and to put another layer in our criticism, in doing the things that are not in a position, working side by side with artists? How is it for you?
So lately I haven't produced very much as an artist, but I believe that the fact that my first step in the art world was as a creator this gives you more than insight. It gives you an in-depth experimentation about the creative process. You understand how the creative process, even though it sometimes relates a lot to your inner self, to your feelings, to your emotions, you can't put aside the fact that you are trying to act in the world, that you have something that has a materiality, and that you cannot, as Louise Bourgeois would say, you cannot easily impose on matter. You cannot easily impose your wish and your desires to a piece of marmor, to a piece of wood, to a canvas, to a paper. So having experienced that gives me, I believe, gives me a very peculiar way of thinking about art, because I always try to imagine how the actual creative process was, and in what sense what happened or what happens during the creative process might be relevant for the public to think about other things. So I believe this is the most fundamental aspect of, having worked a little bit as an artist prior to becoming a teacher, an art critic, and an art historian.
Oh, that's amazing, and I think it's amazing to just have the experience of being an artist first of all, and second, after an art critic and a teacher in art history and in literature, because you said that you're a wanderer. You think it's important for an art critic to wander around different museums and also to go and speak to artists in their workshop and learning more information about the artworks, about how the artwork is created, and everything about the biography of an artist. You think it's important for a art commentator and an art critic to do that?
Yes, absolutely. And if I am to sort your divide your question into three aspects you mentioned. Firstly, I believe that when you are closer to an artist, you have the opportunity to be more closer to the creative process, and you can discuss the creative process with the artist while the creative process is in process, so to speak. And this is very interesting, not only for the art critic, but also for the artist, because usually creating, people say that creating is a very um, not in the solitary, a
Yes.
solitary activity, and to have this kind of conversation with someone else who is not going to simply judge or admire your work is important for the creative process. So this is the first aspect. The second aspect is that traveling and visiting museums is also tremendously important, because this is the moment when you can have this contact, this relation with the materiality of the artwork. And that changes everything in regard to your perception of a piece. So for me, as a Brazilian, I'll give you just one example.
Please.
Uh, I studied art in the 90s in Brazil. So where would I be able to watch a Picasso or a Matisse? Maybe in São Paulo Art Museum. This was like 2,000 kilometers away from where I lived, so I didn't do that. When I was in art school, I would study Picasso by looking at black and white images on books.
Mhm.
And I hated Picasso because they were all the time speaking about Picasso when they were speaking, the art teachers, about modernism, for instance. So I was really not fond of Picasso until the day I traveled to New York and I went to MoMA, and all of a sudden I had Les Demoiselles d'Avignon right in front of me, and that changed everything. And when years later saw Picasso in the Picasso Art Museum in Barcelona, that also changes everything. So it's very important that also when you as an art student or art teacher or critic, when you are in closer contact with the artwork, you know what your perception is. And that perception is many times quite different from what previous art historians or art critics have said about the same artwork. So when you are closer to the piece, you find out what you have to say about something that many times have been spoken of for decades or centuries. So you are able to bring history back to life. This is the second part of the
Yes.
answer. And the third one, I just missed it. Well, I remember. The third one is about wandering. I just wrote about this for an article for the Brazilian Art History Committee. I believe that for the art historian, as much as for the art critic, you have to balance. You always have to balance when you are trying to speak about an artwork, to write about an artwork. It's always important for you to balance what you think you know about that piece
Mhm.
and the perception that you may not know everything. So Paul Valéry used to say that every work we see should remind us that we hadn't seen what we saw. So it means you have to wonder when you watch something, when you see something about what that is. I think you should never depart from the assumption that you know everything there is to be known about something, regardless of how many decades you have been studying art.
This is an amazing answer and an amazing advice for everybody, because I think, as I stated before, sometimes I have this imposter syndrome, even though I know I'm capable of doing articles and presenting. Has this happened to you to know that your article is going to be great, your presentation is going to be great, but still you had this, I don't know, idea that, oh, somebody is going to critique what I've written, somebody is going to say some bad things about my very critical in a not a good manner regarding an exhibition, regarding an artist, because art criticism is not only about saying nice things about an exhibition. Art criticism means saying also this exhibition is not according to what's happening in the contemporary status of art right now, or international status of art. So this is why, from my point of view as an art historian, it's not the best exhibition that I saw in the last week. How do you make your commentaries regarding an exhibitions, and how do you deal with the negativity that can come from an article and from a critical analysis?
So, firstly, I never know, and I always doubt that something that I'm doing is going to be great. For me, writing about art is always a struggle. To write is always a struggle, you know? and I doubt myself a lot in this process. So maybe the imposter syndrome is even something positive in a way that um, it is an impediment as for you to think that, oh, I am great, I know what I'm doing. And when you doubt yourself, that's the moment when you have the possibility of being open to what is unpredictable, what is unknown, you know. So for
Mhm.
me, it's always a very it's suffering. I suffer a lot. But of course, as much as I suffer, I slowly begin sometimes to enjoy the process. And then you have to balance these two things until the moment you say, okay, this is done, I have to deliver it. And when you ask about how to speak about things that are not positive, for me, this is an ongoing process to learn how to deal with that. Because for me, it's easy, it's pretty easy for me to see, um, to identify things that I consider are not good. However, to speak about this in a manner that is not disrespectful to others or hurtful, this is something that takes some time in that effort and that practice of writing, to find ways of speaking about things without being too direct. Sometimes I think we should be able to be more direct, you know,
Mhm.
and saying more precisely what we mean. But in a country like Brazil, for instance, criticism is not viewed as it is in Germany. For Brazilians, when you say that someone is very critical, this is actually this is a bad remark on a person. They are not saying, "Oh, how great that you are so critical." It is like, "Oh my God, how can you be so critical?" You know.
Yeah.
So then, in a country like Brazil, it means you have to be even more careful about finding a more diplomatic way of phrasing and saying things. So it's a specific cultural challenge. Although I believe we live in a world where we should practice more and more being very precise and open in our critique, especially considering that we are living these very harsh times in which, in so many countries and places, people have to again begin to be very careful in order, you know, not to get in, 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 to have problems with different government or governments or whatever social representatives or something or things like that.
Yeah, it's amazing that you talk about the imposter syndrome and you talk a lot about balancing everything and to have a critical view and also to use the correct words. And I think it's important for everybody to do that, even if they are living in a country where things are changing or shifting, or in a country where freedom of speech is something that they have and they can use it. Thoroughly each day. Because we have only 10 minutes during the podcast, I would like to ask you a little bit about your involvement in AICA. Because last year you've been chosen to be AICA Vice President, International Vice President. I would like to for you to tell me a little bit more about how the experience is and how AICA is it's putting art criticism on the map during the Congress, during all the events, and also during AICA podcast, of course.
Okay, I'll try to speak about all of this in one answer, and if I don't, please pull
Of
me
course.
back to whatever is needed. So I'm actually a recent member to AICA. I have been to two congresses since the pandemic. And my previous experience as a Brazilian participating in international forums, so to speak, was in the field of comparative literature. So, because my PhD was in comparative literature, I began presenting papers and going to congresses and publishing in the field of in literature.
Mhm.
I was always speaking about visual arts. I was presenting papers on Brazilian José Leonilson, on Luiz Bourgeois, and other artists. But this was in the uh, literature associations. So after I joined AICA Brazil, which was a first very interesting experience because it amplifies your professional um, the network.
Views.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
your network. And I also had the opportunity to be active organizing one of our kind of congresses and publishing our proceedings and things like that. So when I first went for an AICA Congress, I didn't have any idea how this was going to be, and I was probably having also a little bit of an imposter syndrome.
Okay.
Um, I was very happy when I realized in Poland, in Krakow, that this was a very nice group of people, very interested in each other's works and views. So I spoke to many people, and many people came to talk to me about my presentation. And this is something that for me is very important, not simply on a professional level, but as a person. It's something that warms my heart, so to speak. So for me, and plus that I am a wandering wanderer, so I love to be in
Yes.
contact with people from all parts. So for me, it was kind of a natural step to try to be more integrated with AICA. So last year, I helped with the prize committee, reading all the papers that were submitted, and then I decided to present my candidacy for vice president, and I began this year. And as a first thing, I decided to join then the Congress committee, uh, this year's Congress, which is going to happen in Johannesburg, South Africa, in October. So I'm trying to help a little bit with the organization, with Karen and Gregor, to bring together a nice Congress, although it's kind of difficult because we are all far away from each other, but we are trying to put this together. I don't know if I really answered what you asked me.
Yes, from my point of view, your answers were amazing because you talked a little bit about how you are a new AICA member. Also, I'm a new AICA member. I think I have only 5 years being an AICA member in Romania, and also only 3 years being an international board member. I like that you talk about the congresses that AICA are doing. And as a final question, because time is quite running out, I would like to ask you, or maybe to give an advice to individuals that are not part of AICA for the moment, maybe because they didn't find the time to do this, maybe they don't consider themselves worthy of AICA. What advice would you give them in order to become part of this amazing network that AICA is? Because, as you stated, it's an amazing network of art critics all over the world, and it's an amazing opportunity to just know what everybody is doing worldwide. So, what's your advice?
Okay, so that's the moment, thinking about joining AICA, that's the moment when we have to let go of the syndrome. Okay, it's good
Okay.
when you're writing, but it's not good when you're trying to join an association. I myself would have done this years ago if I had not doubt myself. So I believe the first thing that is important to know is that you don't have to doubt yourself, because this is not like an association which implies that you have, oh my God, you have to be the best person in the world to join. So this is the first thing we have to know. AICA is very warm and welcoming. What you have to do is that you have to consider the professional steps you need to take in order to be able to apply to membership. So the first important thing I would say is look around you, the place where you live, the city where you live, the country where you live, what your museums and galleries are, what the artists around you are doing, and in what way you can contribute, promoting them, writing about them. So you can depart from that to be able to join any national branch, and then later join AICA. So think about building your career in such a way that you promote art which is close to you, so that you can later bring that to a wider forum, to a more international forum, be that by teaching art, writing about art, be that by curating exhibitions, and so on.
Anna Lucia, it was an amazing podcast, and I love that you talk about the solitary part that art criticism and creating artworks involves. I think this topic about how we are loners in our profession, it's a topic that I heard from several speakers of AICA podcast, and I think that's the key ingredient from my point of view of writing about art, because it's only us, our laptop, our notes, and just writing about art and just being ourselves in front of a laptop. For sure, I'm going to talk more with the speakers of AICA about the Congress. Please keep us updated regarding what's going to happen at the Congress. I invite everybody to participate if they are going to be in Africa during the Congress, because it's an amazing experience to meet people working in culture from all over the world. And well, I'm going to keep you updated, and also the AICA website is going to keep you all updated about the information regarding the Congress and about what AICA is doing worldwide. So thank you very much, Ana Lucia. It was an amazing experience. Hope you are going to wander soon in a new city. And in the last 30 seconds, where are you going to? What country are you going to visit next before Africa?
Oh, so firstly, I would like thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. And unfortunately, this year I'm putting all my financial possibilities into travel to South Africa. So unfortunately, I'm not traveling to any other country before South Africa. But I intend to make the most of being there and getting to know, not only to be at the Congress, but also to know more about the artistic scene in Johannesburg, which seems to be very lively. So the days of the Congress will probably not be enough for us to get to know everything there is to be visited there when it comes to the art circle, but also the history of South Africa, which is so important when it comes to a debate about democracy.
Yes. So thank you very much again, Ana Lucia, and for sure I'm going to see you all at the next episode of AICA Podcast. Have a lovely day wherever you are, and thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.